We are honored today to have Dr. Scott McWilliams, the superintendent of USD 437, join us. And Scott, I would like for you to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
Happy to do so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the April 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Bob Archer. I currently serve as chair of the commission and represent District 3 alongside Commissioner Bill Rippon, who represents District 1, and Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First item of business, please.
First items, item 1, proclamations, presentations. Number 1, presentation of recent preparedness activities and exercises that use grant funds to prepare community partners for emergency response and will include initial after-action reports input from the Active Assault and Rescue Task Force full-scale exercises at the Capital Federal Savings downtown and the Washburn Rural Middle School. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. What we'd like to do is just kind of go over a couple things we've done in the past few months, creating some partnerships, or actually building on some partnerships, and preparedness activities that help local responders, as well as some of the local partners as well. Because this is primarily exercise and preparedness and training, I would like to have Mahan, who is our training and exercise coordinator, come up and talk about how we put these together, and then we'll discuss the exercises themselves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Aaron Mahan, Shawnee County Emergency Management. If I can get this to work. There we go. It's a computer. Don't trust me with it. As the director stated, this is an active assailant response exercise, suite of exercises, if you will, that were conducted back in February and March of this year. It's been almost a year-long coordinated effort to put these two exercises together, and there are several things that we did to get this to function. However, with exercises, we realize that people have response plans, policies, emergency operations plans, procedures, standard operating guidelines, and procedures. So we go through and we test those policies, procedures, and plans to see if they can be improved upon. We write a ton of exercises, everything from discussion-based all the way up to functional and full-scale exercise, such as we've done with this one. In 2018, Shawnee County did adopt HSEP, or the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program, which is a standardized nationwide way of conducting exercises to make sure that things are done properly and we can capture all the information to include after-action reporting and improvement planning for those policies and procedures. It's that common approach to exercises, so regardless of where you go across the United States, if it's emergency management related or emergency response related, and they're following the HSEP doctrine, then the information can be gleaned even more accurately that way. So why this series of exercises? In 2016, the Northeast Kansas Homeland Security Council awarded a grant of approximately $70,000 for Rescue Task Force equipment and training. What this did was it was awarded to the fire department, Chief Michael Martin, and then he turned that grant over to Shawnee County Emergency Management for administration and carrying out of the requirements of that grant. We're also the keepers of all the equipment that was purchased through that, and we can now keep track of it and make sure that it's used for the proper purposes and vetted. The grant required one full-scale exercise in a high-rise building and one full-scale exercise in a school setting. So we chose two different places, one within the city of Topeka, which was the Capital Federal high-rise building downtown at 7th and Kansas. The other one was chosen, which was Washburn Rural, or the Auburn-Washburn School District, for that school-based exercise. Originally, the Capital Federal exercise was scheduled for October. However, it's an evening exercise, and we had severe weather that day, so we had to postpone it, and that one was then carried out in February. So what is the Rescue Task Force? We kind of get that question quite a bit when it comes to performing these types of exercises. A Rescue Task Force is a coordinated effort when it comes to an emergency response among law enforcement, first arriving street medics, EMS, fire department, medically trained personnel. What they do is they go in as a team to extract those wounded and injured people within that building, facility, grounds, wherever it may have occurred, to quicker get them help after an incident. It's based on the Tactical Emergency Casualty Care curriculum as opposed to the Tactical Combat Casualty Care curriculum. We talk about tactical combat casualty, which is military trained in order for soldiers to go in and rescue other soldiers off a battlefield. Whereas with the tactical emergency casualty care, this is different disciplines going in to rescue civilians after an incident has occurred. The medics are equipped with ballistic gear, mostly includes helmets and a ballistic vest, along with a trauma kit that is strapped to him somewhere that has immediate stop the bleed tools within it. Tourniquets, stop the bleed gauze, things that they can immediately put a stop to that bleed within that field. Many other states, communities across the United States are adopting the Rescue Task Force because we found that it saves lives a lot quicker. Kind of what we discovered through some looking throughout the United States, different past active assailant incidents, active shooter incidents, is unfortunately when one of these active assailant incidents occurred, the building's locked down by law enforcement, and until the assailant or the subject or suspect is stopped, medics weren't being allowed into the building, and we were literally allowing people to lay there and bleed to death through survivable wounds. So the Rescue Task Force concept was created to where a contingent of law enforcement can go in with EMS providers and act as a security force for those EMS providers and go in and extract those injured people, stopping the bleed at the same time, which improves overall survival rate. Nationwide, realistically, it's compared to local response at local venues, whether it be a school, a business, an open space, regardless of where it's at. And of course, active assailant, those non-specific active assailants, because it's not just firearms we have to worry about these days. They rank at 10 on our county THIRA, or our Threat and Hazard Identification Risk Assessment, and number 12 is terrorism on our county THIRA. So we'll start, like I mentioned, the Capitol Federal exercise. I was the exercise director on this one and facilitated most of the actions. I had a great team of people that I worked with from local responders and from Capitol Federal. The mission areas for this exercise was response and recovery. We try to focus a little bit more on recovery with these exercises because we all like the lights and sirens and people rushing into a building during an exercise, but it's not very often that we focus on the immediate and long-term recovery efforts. Some of our core capabilities that we tested was that operational coordination, which is how well do these different response disciplines work together, and then of course operational communications. How well can we talk to one another? Can fire and EMS talk to law enforcement, and then can we turn around and get a hold of public works if we need them, or other factions that might be involved in a response? Public information and warning. We have to be able to let the public know what's going on, to either shelter in place or evacuate their building, or to totally stay away from a certain area when it's happening. Of course, ongoing situational assessment, and then of course protection of and law enforcement security actions. Mass care operations, planning and infrastructure systems, and then of course long-term recovery. How do we get life back to the way it should be after an assailant has attacked a certain building or a certain incident has occurred? The total participant count for this exercise was 138 people. We had many, many local volunteers that came in to play actors. We were able to put simulated stage makeup and wounds on many of them so that the responders could get a sense of realistic. We were able to use some training tools to enhance the training environment in order to make it seem more realistic, not just for those people that were in the building that were playing and employees that volunteered, but also for the responders as they moved into that type of an atmosphere. You can see all the different organizations that were involved in this exercise, and we pulled it off very quickly. The exercise kicked off at about 6:25, 6:30 in the evening, and we were able to totally wrap things up by about 9 o'clock that night. The exercise covered 3 different floors. Kind of what our scenario was exercise simulated time was 1 o'clock, or about 10 minutes after 1 in the afternoon, which would simulate people coming back from lunch. They're trying to get back into their daily work schedules. And where kind of it was internal threats, the one that we chose. We had a retired employee who needed to speak with Human Resources about some retirement paperwork and get some things straightened out. They enter the lobby, they're escorted upstairs by the security officer, and that person is then left in the Human Resources office. Some discussions turned into heated discussions, where then the person then pulled a pistol out of his pocket and began firing rounds within the building. After leaving the Human Resources office, the subject then went to the second, third, and fourth floor on a shooting rampage, injuring and killing several people. That prompted calls to 911, where they were able to dispatch responders that we had staged about a block and a half, 2 blocks away, and they responded in real time. So we could kind of gauge how quickly we could get law enforcement into the building and then subsequently get EMS responders into the building. Some of the coordination between these different departments that responded, I think it was great coordination. Of course, I can say we did find some areas that do need improvement. A lot of that is the training aspect and bringing those different disciplines together in order to more effectively operate and more efficiently operate, so they can kind of get used to how each other works. That law enforcement is there for security, and the EMS fire coordination part of that is there to care for the injured and help extract those individuals. You can see some of the pictures we have here of the rescue task force in the lower right-hand corner. That's actually in action. They are evacuating somebody. In the middle of the screen on the right-hand side, there's the subject that's been taken into custody and is being guarded by law enforcement to ensure no other active threats are within the building. The triage area is in the upper right-hand corner, where the injured were brought to work with AMR, the rescue task force, and then the law enforcement providing security for that triage area. It does look fairly cramped there. We would probably have put that somewhere else. However, we did have some drizzle and the temperatures were dropping, so we decided to move it inside to protect the responders a little bit. And then there are some other pictures there of the response and evacuation, extrication of the injured and the wounded. Like I said, I think overall it was a very well carried out exercise. We've had a lot of good comments on it. We've had some other organizations come forward and say, hey, we saw about your exercise and would like to have one done in our facility. Test our plans and our policies on how we can do this. This isn't just for the responders either. This is also for internal employees. When we go out and we teach the run, hide, fight concept in response to an active assailant or an active shooter, the employees were able to practice what plans they had in their own workplace in a training environment to where we can make it as safe as possible and see how we carried out. We're still working on the evaluation. Our next move is to meet with our evaluators and the planning team from Capital Federal, as long as with my team, and we'll develop what's called an after-action report, and then we'll develop an improvement plan on how we can improve local response efforts, and Capital Federal can improve their response efforts.
As Aaron said, that was the lead up to, or the first part of this exercise. We were doing overlapping exercises that took us about a year to build each. The second one was at a school, and it was at Albert Washburn Middle School. The mission areas for this one are very similar to the first one. This was actually a 3-part exercise. We had March 8th, 12th, and 19th. March 8th and 19th were both tabletop exercises. The particular exercises that we built on this one, we left kind of open because one of the things we were doing here was helping Auburn Washburn test their plans and procedures as well. So the first exercise that we did was a lead-in, and we took the information from that to apply to the next 2 exercises. So very similar testing on that one. We had 198 participants to include multiple observers from Northeast Kansas. So we had other school districts come in. We had other counties come in and watch this exercise, took notes, and have contacted us afterwards to try to help them write their exercises as well. The picture on here is one of the injects, or one of the scenarios we asked the USD to do was to, after the action, develop a press conference. So we actually had media partners come in and participate in this as well, and that was the panel that were answering questions if it were a real press conference type situation. So what happened on this one? That first exercise, that March 8th, was a tabletop. As we sat down and just had a basic scenario based on real-world events from around the nation. Unfortunately, we had a lot to choose from, but we sat down with them, and it was a bullying type scenario that was off school property that started to come on school property. And so as we asked these questions and built this scenario, the replies from the school district went in to build the second exercise, which was the full-scale exercise. And that's where the assailant had set up a meeting to go to the school, and then they came in, and the unfortunate incident happened there. And then you'll see some pictures regarding that. And then on March 19th, the following week, we took that information and applied very similar to the Florida shooting, the school shooting, where students had nationwide attention. The building was was shut down for a while because of investigations, and how does the school do that with their continuity of operation planning and so forth. So we did have a pre-incident, trans incident, and then of course the long-term recovery incident as well. Here's some pictures and documentation from that exercise. That bottom left picture is one of our favorites taken from this exercise. To look at it, you just kind of see some responders coming in the building with a rescue task force, but that is truly a mixed bag of law enforcement officers, even though they have similar uniforms. We have patrol, we have detectives, we have Kansas Highway Patrol, we have, I think there's warrants in there, so they're coming from all over to do the same exercise. What you don't see is outside the front door is about 100 other law enforcement officers from Topeka, Shawnee County, and fire departments. AMR participated. It was a very, very good exercise. Again, like the other exercise, we tried to make it as realistic as possible. So we had special effects. We had makeup and moulage and all kinds of things to make it real. And there's where our actors, we did pull the actors from the theater group at Washburn Rural, and they had a really, probably too good of a time. But the good thing is they want to come back and do some more. So that was good. We had a lot of other actors that were part of the school and other school districts that come in to be in the rooms. The interesting part, and I'll let I don't want to steal Dr. McWilliams' thunder, but one of the things we did do in this particular exercise is we played with most of the school, the facility itself. So people, some of the teachers were there with students in classrooms in the back part of the school, and we were firing a starter pistol inside the building to see if they could even hear that. So those are the kind of things we were testing as well. So it has a different sound. And then we tried some other stuff in there as well, just to make it as realistic as possible. We are still writing the AAR, the After Action Improvement Plan, and trying to find those gaps. But overall, the priority outcomes, we got similar exercise feedback from both exercises. So in particular to the response teams, we know we need additional training. We know we need more exercises. Everybody agrees on that. The trouble is finding the time to do those things, because life does go on, and we're all dealing with everything else on a daily basis. But the other part was really good, is that everybody was able to meet face to face. So if this isn't the first time, so the first time if they ever had a real event, the first time meeting each other was not on a real event. So we did set that up so they are talking to each other pre anything that would happen for a real world. As you can see, the leadership and cultures we've recognized are vastly different, even from the bank to the school, but definitely from the schools to law enforcement, and law enforcement to fire. So the organizational cultures are vastly different. So getting them to understand how each other works was another positive thing. We're starting to do that. And then our cultural competence and preparedness and emergency planning needs to improve. We put a lot of focus, or I shouldn't say we put a lot of focus, that's the wrong term. Most of the time we think we'll handle it when it comes up. Well, that's probably true, but the way you handle things when they come up is training and preparing for them so you have an idea how you're supposed to do it. We all agree when something happens, the first casualty of war is the plan, but preparing for that plan before it starts is the way to go about doing business. So we need to focus on interoperability overall across the county. Private and government needs to work together. Building a resilient, continue to build a resilient community is key, and that's where our partnerships are starting to really grow and blossom with the private industry and the soft targets here. One of the things we're looking at is the Stop the Bleed, partnering with the health department. They sponsored quite a bit of the Stop the Bleed programming across the nation, and getting some instructors here. And that Stop the Bleed is being taught in schools, I think, and even some junior highs across the nation. So we're going to take a look at that. And again, continuing to train. That's really the only way we're going to get on top of all this and stay on top of it. So I definitely want to give a thank you in a moment for our guests to speak. We have A.J. Heyer, but we have Tom Hagen here, and then from Cap Fed, and then Dr. Scott McWilliams. So if you guys would like to say anything, or if you have any questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Hagen with Capital Federal. We were proud to strengthen our partnership with Shawnee County Emergency Management and first responders to practice this active assailant in our building. We learned before the activity that when a crisis occurs, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training. And so this was a neat opportunity for our employees to practice in a low to no threat environment what would happen if this ever did occur in Capital Federal. We want to thank you guys for everything. It worked out great. We had a nice hot wash at the end just with our employees, kind of talking about what we would do better next time. And, at Cap Fed, we practice fire drills, we practice tornado drills, but we never get an opportunity to practice a drill like this. So that was a neat exercise for us to participate in. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, good morning. Scott McWilliams, Superintendent Auburn Washburn. It's a pleasure to be here. In our school district, the main thing is student safety. And so to that end, we have an emergency operations committee. We have a standing meeting every other week, and we are talking about our students, we are talking about our staff, our school community, and doing everything we can to ensure safety. So when the team called to us about, over a year now and said, hey, any interest in, that was right up our alley because we were doing everything we could to ensure safety. But until you actually go through it, you never really know for sure if the emergency operations plan that you have built will be implemented as efficiently as you put it together. So the first thing I'd like to say is the professionalism, the organization, and the expertise with Aaron and Dusty, it's phenomenal. So job well done having them in the county. It was a wonderful opportunity. Going through the process, the one thing that was most important to us was to check our priority in the event of a crisis situation, which is run, hide, and fight. 10 years ago, 20 years ago in education, we were all trained to just hunker down, turn off the lights, and hide. And the world and some situations that have occurred have indicated that that's no longer the only practice. Many times the best practice is to get your students and to get away from the scene. And so that was important for us to test, and they put the exercise together to allow us to test that. So we did have adults with their students getting out of the building seeking a safe place. The other thing that we were most interested in testing was just communication. There are so many moving parts when something happens. When you have folks coming on, not only do we have to have internal communication, but we also have to have effective communication with all the first responders that are coming on campus. And so we have reinforced some things we're doing well. We have learned some future opportunities that we need to continue to work on. But I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. We are a better school district as a result of it. As a matter of fact, later in May, I have an opportunity to present to superintendents and principals across the state at a conference in Wichita. And so what we learned here can be applied to many school districts moving forward. And again, I think that's just great for kids across the state. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
We would be remiss if we didn't thank the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office as well. As we do these exercises, they do provide real-world security, so bad things don't get in when we're trying to practice safely. So I definitely want to say thank you to them and the USD police force, too. So,
Very good.
we can stand for any
Comments or
questions.
questions for Dusty or
What's next? Are you going to do a drill for outdoor activities? Like say it's in a park and you have thousands of people there or some event like that or downtown event?
Every year when we do the Spirit of Kansas, we put together that plan and we do that. We do an exercise, not a full scale, but we definitely tabletop that with multiple different scenarios. Any outdoor activity that's around here of 5,000 people or more, we do a specific plan for with the City of Topeka Emergency Coordinator Jim Green. So we are practicing these. We talk about them quite a bit, but putting together a full scale in the middle of the day in downtown Topeka on a normal day is pretty difficult to do safely. So those things, we do have to tabletop those, sandbox them, I guess sometimes they're called, but we do look at all those. Any of those kinds of events, we are definitely working through. And that specifically came out of the Las Vegas attack. So we apply those kind of events to our local venues and see how would we respond.
Commissioner Cook?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. It's an unfortunate statement in the world in which we live in that we are taking these exercises and that we have to make these preparations, but I want to thank Emergency Management, Capital Federal, USD 437 for allowing us to train so that we are able to respond should an event hopefully never occurs in our community. But thank you for your foresight, and hopefully this training is never needed in our community.
Yeah, I agree. I want to thank everyone that participated. I know we pray for the safety of all children everywhere, every day. But personally, I've got two precious granddaughters that go to Indian Hills. And so the participation by 437 and Dr. McWilliams means a lot to me personally. So I want to, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, unfinished business. Number 1, acknowledge receipt of correspondence from Under Sheriff Bloom regarding renewal of annual maintenance contract C-156-2019 with CBS Manhattan LLC for door access control, CCTV, and intrusion alarms at the Law Enforcement Center at a cost of $38,857 with funding from the 2019 budget. Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Captain Hoopler with the Sheriff's Office. This got deferred last week. I have had conversations with Dusty Nichols in regards to this, and we'll continue to maintain the system as best we can until a better plan is in place. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, that was our concern when we deferred this, was that we have a broad range of discussion among emergency management and other concerned people. We've done that, and I think we're ready to move forward on this contract. Are there any questions or comments?
No. I move to acknowledge receipt from the Sheriff's Office.
I'll second that.
Motion made to acknowledge receipt by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Captain. Next item, please.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There were 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there questions or comments?
Move for approval as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 4, new business A, County Clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Under building maintenance, Mike Mosier Construction, Inc., $34,413 is for porch repair at Ward Mead Mansion. Total vouchers as of April 19th, 2019, $1,865,401.69. I would move that we approve the vouchers.
Second.
Motion made to approve the vouchers by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve correction orders by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item B, Bond Council. Number 1, consider resolution number 2019-23, expressing the intent of the commission to issue Shawnee County taxable industrial revenue bonds and enter into a base lease and lease purchase agreement with EIG Wanamaker LLC or its assigns, together with all necessary and incidentals.
Good morning, Bob Perry. EIG Wanamaker LLC is the applicant. It's a special purpose entity created by EIG, which is Equity Investment Group, which is basically a real estate development investment trust organization that, from what I can tell from the information that's been provided to me and what I found on the internet, basically specializes in retail investments for itself and its investors. The reason why they're asking for an IRB for approximately $13 million is under the retailer sales tax statute, projects that are financed with bond proceeds of any sort can receive an exemption from the Department of Revenue from retailer sales tax. And in this case, it's about 8% or so of $13 million. So it gives the EIG an opportunity to recoup part of its investment up front. They're retailers, and so they're not subject to the ad valorem exemption that you can get with a bond, so this property will be subject to ad valorem tax once the $13 million improvements are completed. And I was talking with the chairman earlier this morning and just doing some quick math, and that's simple math. I rounded these numbers off. Half a cent county sales tax would generate approximately $65,000, of which 55% belongs to the county and 45% belongs to the city of Topeka under the JADO agreement. So that would be $35,750 of retailer sales tax that the county would not receive on this project. However, with the $13 million investment, let's say Steve could only add about $10 million of increased value back to that property. That's assessed at 25%, which generates $2,500,000 of taxable property, which would use a 50 mil levy for the county. It's 48, I think, today. But 50 mils generates $125,000 in ad valorem tax starting when the project is over, which would probably be 2020 tax year. But that's just for the county. Remember, we've got other taxing districts in the county. They're going to benefit from this. City of Topeka, 501, Metropolitan Transit, the public library, et cetera. So all in all, the $13 million investment will generate substantial ad valorem tax in the future for not only this county but the others. So giving up $65,000 in sales taxes, basically it's a gain of 90 for this year. This resolution basically acknowledges the applicant's request and expresses your intent to issue the bonds. Over the next several weeks, I'll negotiate with Posanelli and Jim, and I'll talk about what the terms of the lease and the base lease and the indenture and the bonds will be. But EIG is buying its own bonds, so we don't have to worry about selling bonds to third-party investors. Reduces everybody's risk.
Okay. Questions or comments for Mr. Perry?
No. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the resolution by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next item, please.
Item C, Human Resources. Number 1, reflect the change in the employer rate of contributions for Capers, KP&F, and working after retirement rates effective January 1, 2020.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. There are just slight changes to the Capers and KP&F for 2020. Capers Tier 1, 2, and 3 for 2019 are 8.89%. They'll be going to 8.61%. For KP&F, they're 22.13% and will go to 21.93%. For working after retirement covered over $25,000, they're 8.39% and will go to 8.61%. That's the only increase, and it is slight. Our working after retirement covered over $25,000, working after retirement non-covered, and death and disability will remain unchanged for 2020.
These rates are changed annually or biannually?
Annually.
Annually, okay. So there's a actuarial study that's done, looking forward and unfunded liability and all that stuff, and
There
this
is.
is what they come up with. as
Capers
far as-
takes care of all of that for
Okay,
us.
Okay. Other questions? I'll move to reflect the change.
I'll second that.
Motion made to reflect the change by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you for the report,
Thank you.
Angela. Next item, please.
Item D, Information Technology. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-161-2019 with Software House International for a 1-year volume licensing agreement with Microsoft to provide Active Directory services for county-developed software applications that run in the Microsoft Azure cloud platform.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pat Oblander with the Information Technology Department. This item is for Microsoft Active Directory services. Those services are simply the management database that handles all of the user account information, passwords, and permissions, and those sorts of things for people that want to get in and manage and use applications that we're building and putting into the Microsoft Azure platform. Traditionally, over the last couple of decades, we've had Active Directory services here on premises that do that job for us throughout the county. That's what provides your network logon and your password management and those sorts of things. We're extending this into the Microsoft Azure cloud as fast as we can, actually, because we find that that is a really good place to have it for continuation of operations, and it's a lot less expensive to manage up there as well. So we're gradually moving more and more things that we've traditionally done on premises into the Microsoft Azure cloud, and this represents one more element in providing our ability to do that successfully. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Pat?
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Pat. Next item.
Thank you, Commissioners.
E Commission, number 1, consider approval of Home Rule Resolution number 2019-2, consolidating the Shawnee County Community Corrections Department with the Shawnee County Department of Corrections effective June 1, 2019, and rescinding Home Rule Resolution number HR 2000-2 and any other resolutions in conflict herewith.
Well, I've noticed nobody's jumping up to talk about this. Jim, would you give us a little background on home rule resolutions and how we typically have a first reading of them and then move? And then I will go over. Essentially, what we're doing is moving the community corrections under Department of Corrections. We had a retirement of Rebecca Cartmill, and there was not a significant or successful succession plan under Rebecca. And so in order to have efficiency, effectiveness, and strong leadership for community corrections, we're moving it, if this home rule resolution is approved, we're moving it under Department of Corrections and the able leadership of Brian Cole.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Crowell, Shawnee County Counselor. It can get confusing, even to county staff who've worked with them for several years. We do have 3 different types of resolutions. This one's a proposed home rule resolution. We're not required by state law to do it this way, but our organizational rules say that typically when we have a home rule resolution, we're going to do a first reading, and then the commission will decide at what later date that resolution will come back for final consideration. That's an internal rule. The commission can always waive it if they decide they want to take action more quickly. That's certainly within your purview, but typically that's how we do it, a first reading.
Very good. Thank you, County Counselor. Mr. Cole, do you have comments?
First of all, I want to, Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I first want to say thank you to the county commissioners for approaching us and having the trust and confidence in our leadership and our staff and our ability to be able to take on this next step. We look forward to this step. We come to this with knowing that it's going to be a welcome challenge, but we also know that with the size of our agency, that the functions that we can look at to enhance, you mentioned with strong leadership, results, accountability, as looking at mutual functions such as human resource, policy, procedure development, training, budget management, also is taking the next step towards meeting and exceeding national standards. And that's one of the things that we've been working on at our agency for the last 20 years. We have, since that time, have numerous staff members that have graduated from Greater Leadership Topeka, have been appointed to government boards, the governor's boards, accreditation, our juvenile detention centers, and within the top 1% of agencies, and our adult agency is right there at the top as well. So with us, that I first want to say that I have personally have met on one occasion with the staff and had a meeting with the staff over there. They have outstanding staff at Community Corrections, that this is going to be a tremendous partnership in us being able to work together and improve it, that we all can continue to be proud of and enjoy.
Very good.
Thank you.
Are there questions for Brian? Any member of the public would like to discuss this issue? Yes, Frank.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm Frank Henderson. I have the privilege of serving on the Community Corrections Advisory Board, and it's been a delight and a joy to serve on that board. Having a background with corrections and at the state level in the state criminal justice system, formerly serving as chair of the State Parole Board, I recognize the challenge of working with offenders and trying to ensure they become law-abiding citizens and are successful. Fortunately, our Shawnee County Community Corrections has just been phenomenal. The results they've been able to achieve has been absolutely the best in the state. 88% successful rate for Shawnee County, 82 or 83% for the 2nd District. And so I just want to encourage you that with the change that we continue to enhance what we have. In my role as chair of the governing board at Vallejo Behavioral Health Care, we've had the opportunity to partner with Director Cole and Major Phelps, and the shop they run has been nothing short of stellar, and absolutely, probably, I would say, one of the best, if not the best in the state. And so I have full confidence in them. I just want to encourage you to continue to enhance the work that we've done with Shawnee County Community Corrections. Thank you.
Your contribution in volunteering to our community is just outstanding. I appreciate your being here this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? No. I'll move that we defer consideration of this for 1 week until April 29th meeting, in keeping with our past practice in discussing home rule resolutions. So that's a motion.
Second.
Motion to defer for 1 week by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
This is an opportunity for department heads, any member of the public to address the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. This is a good time of the year for us. We began planning this in January, but this Thursday, we will be celebrating and holding our 19th annual Volunteer Appreciation Banquet. This is the opportunity for us as an agency to thank and recognize and again, to thank the commitment and the willingness of our volunteers who come into the facility and help us truly make it a successful operation. We have almost 50 to 60, 70 volunteers who put in thousands and thousands of hours each year to help a very needy population. These range from pet therapy for the juveniles, which I've attended, which is, I got more out of it, I think, than the juveniles. We do education programs, life skills, cognitive behavior programs, drug and alcohol, religion, and other education programs. But I want to emphasize that without the dedication and loyalty that our community has, that you just mentioned to Mr. Henderson, and willing to come in and volunteer and help us, that has truly helped us lead the way of being a very good agency and a community partner. So as you know, the commissioners will be there. Our keynote speaker will be Dr. Tiffany Anderson with 501. I've tried to book her for 2 years, and I've finally been able to pin her down. But I'm looking forward to that keynote message, and looking forward to another outstanding event. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oakes from the Health Department. I have a couple things. The health department will be closed Wednesday. All day is our annual workforce development day. So if you have any questions, please give us a call. Look on our website, but that will be Wednesday. You might have noticed also in today's paper on the editorial page, our own Mr. Craig Barnes is the guest editorial column. So I just call that to your attention. He did a great job on that, talking about the health and improving the health of our community. And my last item is that last week our Epi Surveillance newsletter was released, and Lynn Lee, our epidemiologist, writes this newsletter. I'm going to ask her to come up here with me. I just want to point out a couple of things on this newsletter. This is Sexually Transmitted Disease Awareness Month, and you might remember from the county health rankings that our STD rate is one of the drivers that affects our ranking in a negative way. We have a high STD rate here in Shawnee County, and so the article goes through and talks about the campaign from the Centers for Disease Control. This is the chlamydia rate, the rates of reported cases. Shawnee County is the purple line, so you can see we are high there. And actually, the chlamydia rate is the rate they use for the county health rankings. The other STDs, our gonorrhea rate, again, is very high. In 2018, it was the highest in the state, in Shawnee County. And then the other figure 3 you see is syphilis. There is a syphilis outbreak in several areas of Kansas, and it's interesting. Lynn did talk to KDHE, to the epidemiologist there, and asked some questions about these. And she did ask what is driving the increased rate of the increased cases of syphilis. And their answer was that the biggest driver of syphilis cases in Kansas is due to the methamphetamine drug use. So we hear a lot about opioids, but we have a meth problem here too. And so I think that's important to point out. And so these charts show you the different rates as far as Shawnee County, Kansas, and the U.S. This newsletter goes out to all our providers in Shawnee County in the area, and we get emails back telling us how great it is and how helpful it is. So she does have some information, and then there's some links for providers to know how to treat, how to test. We're going to be looking at these things also at the health department. We do have a clinic at the health department. We do treat STDs, and it's a reasonable cost. So I encourage anyone to walk in or call, and we will get you in. And so Lynn is here to answer questions about any of these charts. And did you want to say anything else about it?
All credit.
Hi, Lynn with the Shawnee County Health Department. Do you have any specific questions about STD? I know this piece was a fun piece for me to write. It really was just a conversation piece between the health department and KDHE, and I really wanted to understand what was driving the rates in Kansas and specifically Shawnee County. And what really is going on in Shawnee County is really what we see nationally. And so do you have any specific questions?
I have a question. Are the counties consistent in the way they report all these cases, or do we do a better job of reporting cases and then that negatively affects us? I see that sometimes in reports, and I didn't know if it was consistent across the state.
From my understanding, all of the states across the nation and the health departments report the same information to the CDC.
Commissioner?
Well, part of when we hired your position or created your position was to identify hot spots within our community that we needed to address with the health department. And so having identified it, I think we moved to stage 2, which is how do we address it. And I look forward to our community health planner and Linda, her team, working on how we can reduce these rates, because these are very alarming rates and very concerning to the health of our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Neaus, Director of Public Works and Solid Waste. As we get close to the change in phases on Southeast 29th, I just want to bring you up to date with a couple announcements. This is an updated picture of the bridge, Deer Creek, Shawnee Lake Spillway. As you can see, the light-colored fill, the light brown fill is the structural fill, and that is all in place. And now we're placing material on which the pavement will set. Ultimately, the pavement will be up to the top of these wing walls. Of course, pavement will be on the north side because as we move into the next phase, that's where the traffic will be on the 2 open lanes. We will have temporary barrier along this north face to protect the traveling public. And work will take place then along the south side of the right-of-way as we move into the next phase. That takes me then into the next announcement. It's not shown in this picture here, but up here at the top of the hill is an intersection with Granger. Granger allows access to that community at the southwest quadrant, in the southwest quadrant of Southeast 29th and West Edge Road. Effective today, we are closing that access. The reason we're doing that is people are creatures of habit, and we're trying to change habits. We want these habits to change before the construction activity starts on the south side. We don't want people driving through barriers into a work zone. So, this morning, we've had message boards out for almost a week, but this morning, effective today, this morning, that intersection will be closed. Rest assured, there's still access to the neighborhood. The fire department knows about this closure and have planned accordingly. Any questions?
Are we finished with all utility relocations? Is that all completed now?
It's all completed. Obviously, if you've been out there, the utility company hasn't cleaned up very well, but the work itself is complete.
Commissioner Cook.
Commissioner Archer, I just want to thank you for the job that you did at the community luncheon for the state of the community. Commissioner Rippon, Jim Crowell, and the rest of us at table 45 did our best to heckle you, but we were far enough back, I don't think you could hear us or see us. So, but you had the support of table 45.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to echo those comments. You did a great job. I thought that the videos were very well done, and I enjoyed it. Also, I got a chance to go to a Tulips at Twilight at Old Prairie Town. If you haven't had a chance to go to that, I encourage you to go. It's just magical, and it's a great event. And I think they have one of the best volunteer staff in town out there, and of course, Tim, your staff did a great job too, keeping everybody in line and keeping things running smoothly. So, but if you get a chance, go attend. It's great.
It is great.
And I might just add, having gone a couple of times, I think the peak time is to try to get there about 7:15 or 7 o'clock, because by 7:30 is when it really goes to dusk. And so that way you can see the tulips, because when it's dark, you can't see the tulips, but you can see all the effects. And that way you get to see the best of both. And so 7:15, 7 o'clock is the best time to get there.
Okay, good, thank you. I had a couple of things. Number one, I did want to say, Craig, it was an excellent article, and finally, we had something on the Capital Journal editorial page that was worth reading, other than their usual trash. As far as the community address, it's always an honor to tell the story of the many successes of Shawnee County, and I appreciate that opportunity. Next item, please.
Item 6, executive session.
There's not a need for an executive session, so we're officially adjourned. I think we got stuff.
Some stuff to sign.
No, good job, and I was glad that